Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 10, State and Civil Society with topic Concept of the State and Overview. The state being at the very core of political theory has been defined differently by different political philosophers since the time of the ancient Greek. For some, it is an institution of coercion, while for others, it is the custodian of the rights of the people. While some, like the anarchists, would like to abolish the state straight away. Others, like the socialists of the non-Marxist shade, would want it to stay to establish socialism. Despite the fact that the state has meant different things to different people, one cannot ignore the central place the state has in political theory. One would do better if one attempts to discuss the meaning of the state vis-a-vis society, which has come to us by a host of Eastern political philosophers. Now let us move to the next point, the pre-modern tradition. In all his work in political theory, there is a strong case which Plato builds in favor of an omnipotent rule. The problem to which Plato addressed himself was not as to best a government could be created, but as to how the best government could be installed. It is the job of the government, Plato affirmed more than once, to help people live a complete life. It is thus with Plato a matter of just not a government, but a just government, just not a government anyhow, but a perfect government, the government that was able to deliver happiness for all who lived therein. For Plato, a state is a system of relationships in which everyone does his own business and where the job of the state is to maintain and promote such relationships. Following his teacher, Plato, Aristotle defined the state as polis, as a community which exists for the supreme good. He says that the state is an association of households and villages sharing in a life of virtue and aiming at an end which exists in perfect and self-complete existence. Both Plato and Aristotle, and for that matter all Greeks, thought of polis as more than a state. It was an arrangement of administrative machinery, a government, or a constitution, but was also a school, a church, laying the guideline for a way of life, which for them was nothing but leading a full life. For Plato and Aristotle, there was no distinction between the state and society. The state was an organ and a part of the society. It was submerged in society itself. In addition, the Greeks thought of the police as an ethical entity, and that was why they assigned ethical functions to be performed by the rulers of the state. That is, good, happy, and complete life. Barker writes, it is more than a legal structure, it is also a moral spirit. An ancient Greek would never imagine himself without the polis. He was only a part of the polis, a part of the whole. Barker says here were individuals distinct from the state, yet in their communion forming the state. Weber also says for the life to be worth living must have a meaning, and only in the police they were sure did it acquire meaning. There was no distinction between political, social, and ethical life in ancient Greece. The society was the state as the state was with Plato and Aristotle, a government, a free man. The master was a citizen, a legislator, and a member of the society. He, as a ruler, ruled the individual as a member of the society, all the individuals, the whole society. The slave owning society of ancient Greek times could hardly be expected to give a theory of a state, may a theory of society more than that of the government, precisely the rulers. To Cicero, writings would go the credit of giving a notion of the state, which is not a polis, but a commonwealth, like the ancient Greek. Cicero also regards the state submerged in the society, a part that is an integral part of the society. Cicero says the commonwealth then is the people's affair, and people is not every group of men associated in any manner, but is the coming together of the considerable number of people who are united by a common agreement about law and rights and by the desire to participate in mutual advantages. For this, Cicero or theory of the state can be summed up as the state is differentiated from people's gatherings, society. People enter the state after they agree on certain rules, giving people a legal status which lead them to form legal community. The state exists when people agree to participate in its affair. In Cicero's theory, there is a theory of state different from that of theory of society. He makes a distinction between the state and society. His theory of state is the theory of government as well as a theory of political community. The medieval political theory in the West was mainly concerned with the Christianity, where there was more a religious life regulated by the dictates of the Roman Catholic Church. Here the Pope, the Christendom ruled the universe and politics was controlled by the church. The approval power was regarded inferior to that of the celestial, the state acting as a former foot on the wider world. The state in the medieval Europe world was thought of as a mean for reaching the city of God, and the human law was to work under the divine law, natural law, and ultimately under the eternal law. It was not the society that controlled the state, but those who controlled the society, the Pope, the church priest, and monarchies, and the feudal lords who controlled the state, that is, the state machinery. Now, let us move to the next point, that is the liberal individualistic tradition. With the modern age ushering in the Western world during the 15th, 16th century, there appeared a definite theory of state. The liberal individualistic philosophers with Hobbes onward came to make a clear distinction between the state and society by making a state a matter of mere governance. All liberals basing their political theory on individuals came to build political power, the state as an instrument. Some like Hobbes giving all powers to the state, while others like Bentham making it a non-interventionistic one. All liberal argues for an autonomous individual, the degree for individual autonomy differing from the philosophers to philosophers. The liberals' laurels included individual liberties, rights as sacred as natural, property ethos, rule of law, free competitive and market economy, all to remain free from the interference of the state. The early modern political theory could not make distinction between the state and government. All regarded state power as political power and political power as the power of the government. The Machiavelli state credit goes to Machiavelli for introducing the word state in political science. Whether princedom or republic is a power state, meaning thereby that it exists for the power and exists because of the power, whose main interest is to maintain, enhance, and enlarge its own authority. For Bodin, the state is a lawful government with sovereign powers of different households and their common affairs, considering the state affairs as concerning the public, the final cause, end, or design of man. Hobbes says is the foresight of their own preservation and of a more contented life. With Locke, the liberal theory gets impetus and the state comes to protect property and promote a better economic life. For liberalism comes to stay with the political philosophy, the capitalist class, the democratic flavor, joining it at a large stage of development. The early liberal democratic theory restricted the role of the state to the minimal protecting life, liberal and property of its citizens from external aggression and internal chaos on the one hand, and providing a system of justice and public works and amenities on the other hand, with no role for the welfare of the people. It was John Stuart Mill later who expanded the positive role of the state in preparing a conducive atmosphere where individuals could enjoy a better way of life. Mill and Green introduced democratic elements in the organization and functioning of the state. though both could hardly leave their capitalistic shackles. In sum up, one may therefore conclude that the early modern political theorists such as Machiavelli and Bodin could hardly see beyond the omnipotent state. The contractualist, especially Hobbes, had thought that in order for society to come into existence, a strong state is required. The early liberals such as Locke, Smith, Bentham held the view that as the society has the capacity to reproduce and regenerate itself, the state and its power should be minimal. But later liberals J.S. Mill, T.H. Green, D. Trunkel felt that numerous social associations, while enhancing social ability, could become instruments through which the individuals could fascist a political discourse and which limit the nature of the state power. The liberal pluralistic in the third and fourth decades of the 20th century were able to build a strong case for the numerous associations existing in society to control the omnipotence of the state while balancing the latter against the claims of the society. Now let us move to the next point, the Marxist tradition. The Marxist theory of the state emerged as the reaction against liberalism. For the Marxist, state and society are two distinct entities. Though the state is not independent of society, the society type explains the type of state. Society providing the base on which stood the superstructure. The Marxists, regarding the state as a product of a class society, believe the state to be a class institution protecting and promoting the processing class and oppressing and coercing the non processing class. For them, the state is an engine of class rule. But it is also an instrument of social and political change. Its negative function is to destroy the remains of the earlier society, while it, through its constructive functions, builds the structure and culture of the class it is manned with. Chadok discusses three theoretical moments of the Marxist theory of state. The first such moment has been when Marx and Engels, in the manifesto of the Communist Party, regard the executive of the modern state as a committee for managing the common affairs of the whole bourgeoisie. Marx also writes in the preface to Towards a Critique of Political Economy, the totality of these relations of production constitutes the economic structure of society, the real foundation on which arises a legal and political superstructure and to which correspond defined form of social consciousness. This base superstructure model of the state was a reaction to the liberal concept of the disembodied state standing apart from society, as also a reaction against the Hegelian model of the all powerful state while subordinating civil society to it. The second moment, appearing around the 1960s and with Ralph Miliband and Hazawa Alvi, questions the nature of the state and its relationship with society. In it, the state emerges as the distinct theoretical object in its own right, and state centric theory emerged as the dominant stream of political theory. The third theoretical moment was made possible through the contribution of the Nicopolanges and Closov. This moment saw political theorists preoccupied with the concept of theories. Following Gramsci, who had conceptualized the state as the political constitution of civil society, the Marxist political theorists of the third theoretical moment began a sprawling interest in civil society as the sphere where meaningful practices, both hegemonic and subversive, are generalized. Here we want to wind up today's lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.